Welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com Nhl Dfs strategy show. We've got a nice little six-gamer to talk about on this Monday afternoon, coming at you a little bit earlier today. This will give us a better chance to pick up some podcast listeners as well. We'll have this up on pod if you guys want to listen to us on whatever speed you like. For me, it's 1x. We talked about this on Friday. I think Terry, I think he's a 1x, a 1.25 guy, which I can get behind. But Terry, how you doing, man? How did DFS go this weekend for you all around? I heard there was a big football game.
Oops, sorry about that. I think I got a little crosstalk on our audio there. I'm doing good, man. It was interesting weekend DFS-wise. Got my butt kicked in showdown yesterday for the Super Bowl. Got lost in NBA, so got beat up a little bit over the weekend. But sounded like it went a little bit better for you anyway.
Yeah, NHL was good. NFL, I don't want to talk about it. Although, those showdown slates, it's like, at least when you're just wrong and you just know you're going to get crushed, like, you don't even have to, follow your lineups. It's bad when you're coming down to the end and you're close to hitting the optimal or you have the optimal and then you get, edged out at the last second. Like, those are the painful ones. So yesterday, as soon as Gronk scored the first one, I knew I was in trouble. Once he scored the second one, I knew I was just done as far as thinking anything. So then it was just, let's see how much of my entries I'm actually going to lose, and end up being 80%. But this is an NHL show. I mean, NHL went okay, and that's all you can ask for. So yeah. Looks like we got a bunch of people in chat. So Larry says 3 p.m. ? Yeah, so 3 p.m. Eastern time is going to be the start time of most of the shows going forward. We do have a really cool NBA show that's coming on. I can't remember if it's starting at 4:30 Eastern or 4 Eastern, but at some point it will start at 4 Eastern, and that'll go for an hour. Then you'll get the deeper dive. Then you'll get live before lock. So we're getting pushed forward a little bit, but hopefully gain some additional viewers. Maybe people on their lunch breaks on the West Coast can check us out. Spread the word to your friends if they're interested and they're wondering where we're at in an hour. Let them know that we're just starting a little bit early. You can always catch the show on replay, and then again, you can catch it on pod as well. We'll upload these each day right after the show. Pretty good slate. I mean, 2 spots that are going to be very, very chalky. And then we actually got another chat here from Jeff. It says, thanks for all your advice and help over the years. I got tied for third yesterday in the DK. $10 contest, was in first until the Seth Jones assist with 50 seconds took me to tied third. So we went from a 7K potential win to 1,200. Yeah, so that's a little bit painful, but $1,200, nothing to sneeze at there. The DK prize pools are they're tough. I mean, that's DFS these days. Puts his username right there. So, if you don't get first in some of these top-heavy lotteries, it's gonna be tough because you're basically just hoping to get back most of your entry fees and move on to the next day and try to bank. So, if that's not for you, maybe cash games are the better way. Do you play cash in any sport, Terry?
I was dabbling in it a little bit in NBA earlier this year, just playing some quints on FanDuel, the 5X multipliers, which are, kind of a hybrid GPP cash. I've never been, whether it's DFS, whether it's poker, any of that, I've always just focused on tournaments. I've got just googly eyes for those big prize pools and things like that. So I've been fortunate to, do fairly well trying to navigate through that. And I know for sure that I should play more cash. I'm just lazy and terrible at actually following through on doing that.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you play cash?
I've played it at times. I've never really stuck with it.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to do that, especially with how competitive DFS is. You need to give yourself a little bit of a sample to see if you're actually good at something or if you're running hot or running cold, and maybe you should continue to do something where you actually are losing money for a couple weeks or a couple months. So I actually don't play too much cash. I feel like in NHL, I could probably make some decent cash lineups and play at the lower stakes maybe and do okay there. But yeah, I love the tournaments. I love the stacking element. I love finding low owned plays that work out every once in a while and hitting the big cashes, and then the crushing losses, I guess. Those hurt, but when you get one that goes your way at the end, it makes it up for
Yeah, it's all part of the ride, right? And you get those
Yeah.
bad beat stories and everything to tell. You don't get that out of cash games so much. And it's just not, to your point, it's just not as fun to play the same guys that everybody else is playing except for one guy or two guys. And it's way more fun to get into it and try and outsmart the field.
I know Emac's been doing really well playing low stakes NHL tournaments, multipliers, like you said, and then he's just using the projections and the tools on the site. So it definitely can be done at the lower stakes if you're using the tools on the site. Obviously, we use them. I'm doing the projections every day. Alex and Eddie behind the scenes are doing the ownership projections. We've got the top stag tool. We've got really everything you can ask for. So if you want to sign up, we've got the NHL Weekly Pass for $11.95 per week, and we've even got an NHL Express for $3.95 per week if you guys want to check those out. Really quick, we do have the NHL rankings and the NBA big board for free today. So I want to make sure I mention those each day that we've got the free premium content. Those are going to be unlocked for anyone. So if you're watching the show, you've never heard of us, or you want to see what's behind the paywall, NHL rankings today, NBA big board. All right, let's talk about these 6 games. You're a Rangers fan, right, Terry?
I am, and I'm just seeing that our pal Jeff Blick, who did that winning in there, is a Rangers logo in the chat, so I like him even more.
There we go. Well, your Rangers are up first. They are hosting the Islanders. 2.7 implied total for the Isles, 2.8 for the Rangers. Varlamov and possibly Shesterkin. It could be Georgiev for the Rangers. I never know how to pronounce their goalies' names, but at least you know who I'm talking about. They're far enough away that you know which one's which. David Quinn said he's not going to tell the beat writers who the goalie is tonight. I mean, whatever. We're going to find out 30 minutes before. I think they are the same price, but now I want to check this out and see if Shesterkin is actually more expensive. Okay, he's $7,800, and then Georgiev is $76. All right, so I'm putting in Shesterkin in case you don't want to rerun all your lineups. You can always just swap down, hand edit if you want to use the $200 elsewhere. That's what I plan to do. Unless we
same holds true on FanDuel, by the way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, same price.
Yeah, in this game, we're seeing a decent amount of ownership on the Rangers' top line, which I was not expecting. I think they'll come down a little bit in ownership as we move closer to lock. But that was the one thing I was a little bit surprised to see. Islanders, pretty good defensive team. It's not like they're really hurting for forwards or defensemen. So are you in line with this Rangers 1 popularity?
So I was kind of surprised to see how popular they were, or just by comparison with those 3 other dominant, line ones from other teams up there on the board. They rank 4th, but they're the most popular out of that group. And it kind of makes sense when you look at the price. The overall price for the line on DK, 16-1 as compared to over 20 grand for those other top lines. On FanDuel, 17-7 as compared to over 20 grand. So I think just by price, people are probably landing on that on a line that they played a lot last year. They know the names. They know how to, kind of just plug it right in. But I think it's really, really price driven where we're seeing that ownership bubble up.
Yeah. So that's that's my problem. Larry in chat says Zibanejad due for positive regression. I mean, I think at some point he's going to start to turn it around. Like, this was a guy who was on an absolute tear, I think, pre-COVID. He was one of the best DFS plays game after game after game. So 6,200, probably a pretty good price for him. They're fully correlated on the power play, this Rangers 1 stack. But I think I'm a little bit more interested in the Rangers 2 at close to half the ownership. Not having to go up against Barzal and Lee and Bailey. I wish it was Everly up there, but with Everly down on the Islanders' second line, maybe you've got 2 Islanders lines that are at least worth taking a look at. I like Rangers 2, and that's really where I'm going to go on that side. I mean, you certainly could go with the power play. It's really inexpensive to stack them up. Unless you want to throw in Fox there for 5,700, gets a little bit more pricey. But you're getting good values on Kreider, Buchnevich, and Zibanejad. So I understand the ownership. I don't think I'm going to be at 20% if they're going to be at one of the highest owned lines of the night, especially with the 2.8 total. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense to start looking at that second line. I don't love like going down all the way to the third line, but if you wanted to get super cheap, there is a little bit of talent on there. They've got the the high end rookie Alex Lafreniere on that line. So you could get really cheap if you need like a discount line and drop to that. But I think the focus, to your point, is that second line. Strome's starting to come around a little bit. Panarin, all-world player. And then their second overall pick from last year, Kaapo Kakko on that line. So they're kind of rounding into form a little bit. So, yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. And you get a lot of ice time. You get the power play correlation if you start with Panarin and, put some of the guys from the first line in. You could do it that way, like you said. On FanDuel, I think Fox is really interesting for some power play correlation with that top line because he only costs $4,300. So there's a major price difference on Fox, but he's getting 25% ownership. So again, you're not building in any differentiation by doing that, but you are building in some solid power play correlation. And he's been just awesome. He's I didn't realize this even as a Ranger fan, but I read it earlier this morning. Since December 31st, 2019, his plus 21 is second only to Victor Hedman in the entire league.
Wow.
For defense.
Especially for a team that's not like that, like they're not an amazing team, right?
Known at all for their defense.
Yeah. So pretty tough to do. On the Islanders,
as a rookie too. I mean, he was a rookie last year, second year kid this year. So
yeah, 5,700. I mean, he's earned that price tag. He's had a couple huge games so far. Definitely has upside, especially if you're going with Rangers one. Don't mind tossing him in there. And on FanDuel, he's much, much cheaper, as you mentioned. So
yeah, but just watch that ownership. You got to get really different with something else if you go that route.
Right. On the Islander side, anything catching your eye here?
No, I mean, I think it makes some sense to maybe look at the top line there, of course. And then I don't like the way that they break up between the power play lines. But if you wanted to do like a Barzal Lee two-man with a Pulak, something like that, to get a little power play correlation and maybe a little bit of a different kind of a look to that line, maybe something there. Not a tremendous team that's really jumping out at me as far as lines to go to, though. Top line, 168.58 together since the start of last year, only a 48.62 Corsi for. They do have a nice goal differential, 70.59 goals for percentage, and 33 to 34 high danger chances for versus against, but they've scored 7 and only yielded 4. So they do generate some nice chances and some good offense. Second line is only 17 minutes together so far this year. But if you go down to DeColy and Nelson without Eberle, they're 133-31. But again, a weak Corsi number, only 45.02 Corsi for percentage. So a little issue with puck control there.
Yeah, if I really was on top line for the Islanders, I think I would be all over them. I'm still over the field on them pretty comfortably. So I like that. I mean, anytime you can get Barzal and Lee at 5-6% going up against the Rangers on a 6-game slate, I know there are other premier options, and you can't really fit them in that well with their price tags. But I'm over the field on Islanders 1, as I oftentimes am. And then I think I'll be over on the Rangers 2 even strength stack. Will include some some Rangers power play stacks as well. And then just wanted to mention that Trouba, again, down to 3,700. That is a really good price for a guy who blocks shots, will attempt some shots, and get secondary power play time as well. So like that a lot.
Yeah, 24 block shots already on the year. So and 22 minutes and 38 seconds of ice time a game. So you're locking in some solid floor with that.
I think he had like half of those in one game. Like I'm pretty sure he had a 10 block shot game last week. So they can come in bunches, and Islanders can generate shots. So.
Yeah, and only 3,900 on FanDuel, 6.9% ownership as compared to Fox up in the top pair. So definitely an interesting consideration there if you start to look at maybe Rangers power play 2 and working with some of those guys. There's some talent on that. So yeah, makes some sense.
All right, let's go to Carolina and the Columbus Blue Jackets. 3 implied total for the Canes, 2.5 for the Jackets. Nedeljkovic going for the Canes. Korpisalo, I know that one. He's going for the Jackets. These two played yesterday. These two teams played yesterday. It was Reimer, I believe, for the Canes. yesterday, early afternoon. And then I think Korpisalo going on the back-to-back, if I have that right. Anyways, we saw a bunch of goals. Game ended 6-5. It was controversial. The Canes were awarded a goal that they probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah, that was a weird situation.
Yeah, so I guess so the intern or something. I don't know what happened with that exactly. But anyways, these two teams are playing again. We've seen a couple times recently, Nashville and Florida, and there was another series in the first game goes nuts. There's 9, 10, 11 goals. And in the second game, the teams kind of settle down and there's less. So obviously a small sample size there, but Vegas still got this at a 5.5 implied total, one of the lowest on the entire slate. I'm not finding a ton that I love here, but we're seeing some ownership that's in check on both sides. Is there anything you're interested in here, Terry?
I kind of am expecting this one to settle down more than we saw in that wild game last night with 11 goals scored. I think this is going to be a calmer game. Carolina's a decent defensive team. 24 goals against is tied for fourth with a few other teams. They've only played 9 games, but still, it's a reasonable number. 30 goals for is 19th in the NHL, so they're not a huge offensive team. Blue Jackets, 35 goals for on the year, 42 allowed. So they give up a little bit more, but they don't. And they don't really rack up a ton. I think it's going to be kind of, an on-pace game for what Vegas is looking at. So nobody really jumps out to me. I would say, maybe that top Carolina line would be my first inclination, followed by the top Columbus line, which is kind of not really going out on a limb with anything here. But those are the two that have some appeal. You're getting them around like where they should be owned according to our top stacks tool, going by the leverage and the chance of being the most top two, one of the top 2 stacks. So you don't gain a ton. So maybe you look to a Carolina 2 where you pick up a little bit on the ownership and you're still getting a quality line out of it. That Carolina 2, only 1351 together so far this year with all 3 of them, 58.06 Corsi 4. Scored 1 goal, given up 3, so 25% goals for 6-5 in high danger chances, then scored 1, gave up 2 in the high danger situation. But you get Terravin and Niederreiter together, 466.09 together since the start of last year. The Corsi 4 jumps to 60.57. The goals for improves to 48.48%, 16-17, and 98-71 high danger chances for versus against with 8 goals scored, 10 against. So they're a little bit better than they might look on the surface, and I think there's something there to that second line without a ton of ownership on it.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where if I don't love something in the game and it's a bigger slate, I'm just trying to play lines that I think are good at generating chances and have a good chance to stick together. And I think on the Carolina side, you've got 2 of those potentially. Aho, Svechnikov, basically with whoever are solid. Actually not solid. They're really awesome together at 5-on-5. They play on the top power play. So you've got some things to like about the top line. It's just the pricing, kind of like what I mentioned with Islanders 1. You can't fit them very comfortably in with your Toronto 1s, your Edmonton 1s that we'll get to. And so everybody's going to go there, and that's going to squeeze out like Isles 1. That's going to squeeze out Carolina 1. And then the second line is a little bit pricier than what we've seen with Teravainen up there. And I do like him up there a lot. So before they had Nichus, he can't play. He's got some sort of upper body injury. Took a hard fall, I think, the other night. So he's missed a couple games. But really low ownership on Carolina 2. And I just believe in that line. I think Carolina is the better 5-on-5 team. So I think I'll be targeting their top 2 lines somewhat. It's just hard to make a major stance on this top line when you've got a couple teams that are in just really phenomenal spots that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So I like them, but because of the nature of the slate, I don't think I'm going to have much more than like double digits of either the Carolina lines. And then on the Blue Jackets, the line that I'm most interested in is the Texier, Bjorkstrand, Domi line. They're cheap. They have Bjorkstrand. I tend to gravitate towards wherever he's at. And I mean, the top line for Columbus is carrying some ownership. So 7,000 for Line A. I don't really know that he's worth that until we know what his role is going to be and if he's going to stick with the line. So if you wanted to one-off him, probably not going to be a very popular one-off. He is a goal scorer. I'm okay with that. But I think for a full line stack, Columbus 2 would be my preference. So I rarely know what to do with Columbus. If you look at my exposures with them on a big slate, they're basically in line with what the field is, because I just never know if they're going to stick together. At least this game's at 7 Eastern, so we'll be able to see the lines prior to lock. But that doesn't mean they're not going to change before the game even starts, depending on how their coach is feeling. So $4,500 for Seth Jones, I think, is a pretty good price, especially with no Werenski. And then on the blue line for the Hurricanes, you've got Dougie, who is more of a correlation play tonight. 6,500 is a fine price for him. It's just not the greatest matchup in the world. And then I'm probably going back to some Brett Pesce and some Brady Shea at 3,300 and 3,400 as well.
Makes some sense. I like the looks of Hamilton on FanDuel, 5,400, but only 3% ownership. That's pretty solid. So if you're playing some of that Carolina, maybe build him in and stack the power play. Go Aho and Svinchov and Hamilton there. Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. People are asking about the lineup review and the daily hat trick predictions. I mean, I don't know. We could probably do that at the end, the hat trick prediction. That was something that me and Homer Cleese used to do a couple of years ago. And then, I don't know, I probably just got lazy along the way, or had to get out of the show because we've got so much going on. So it's hard to remember all this stuff.
I mean, a hat trick is a tough call. How many did you actually get right? Do you remember?
I think Steve, Homer Cleese, I think he got a couple right. I don't know that I ever got one right. Or maybe we did like a multi-point game or something along those lines. Yeah. But yeah,
I'd almost rather try and call like a Gordie Howe hat trick. Like that's a little bit easier.
That would be impressive.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Give me some Tom Wilson every night. You know, he's always looking to fight people.
There you go.
I think we are good here. Both the goalies cheap, but guys that I'm probably just correlating. I don't think I'm getting to either of those two guys in the lineups where I'm not correlating goalies. So
makes sense. Well, just talking about that Carolina one line and about the price, they total out to 15.9, right? Would you rather play them or Edmonton 2 at 16.1 or New York 1 at 16.1? So basically similar prices.
New York 1. The Rangers?
Yeah, it's Rangers. Yeah, sorry. Rangers 1, Edmonton 2, or Carolina 1. Which would be your preference out of those?
When you put it like that, when you put it like that, I think I would play Carolina 1. And I'm assuming they're the lowest owned of those three. Yeah,
they are.
Moto and Cahoon are both owned quite a bit for Edmonton because they play with Draisaitl. I mean, I think they're clearly the best 5-on-5 line of those and the lowest ownership. And if the price is similar, I think you're talking
saving $200 by going to them.
Yeah, I like that. And Brock McGinn, he's not like the biggest plug on that line. He doesn't project as a great value or anything, but he is cheap, makes the line more affordable. And I think he scored goals in each of their last 2 games. So he can score, not saying he's going to score a goal a game, but not the worst
3
player
on the
in
year.
the world. Yeah, not the worst
on the year, 16 shots. Yeah, 2 blocks.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Vancouver and Toronto. Bunch to talk about here. 2.7 implied total for the Canucks, 3.8 for the Leafs. Braden Holtby and Freddie Anderson are your goalies. Anderson is expected. Holtby is confirmed, but we think it's going to be Anderson because it's almost always Anderson. All right, so for the Leafs, no Wayne Simmons. He was on the top power play. He was having a nice start to the season. Was playing with Tavares and Nylander over the last couple of games. He is out for the foreseeable future. Zach Hyman, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner stay as the top line. The only difference is that Hyman is going to play on the top power play. Leafs are going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen tonight. So that means that we don't really know who's going to play with Tavares and Nylander. So if you're trying to 3-3 even strength stack, maybe you want to X out Rasmus Sandin because he might show up in some of your crunches, or these line two Leafs like Muzzin and Justin Holl. Nhl Dfs, fine two-man stack. I think you've got a third line that's also in play on the Leafs. And then Vancouver just has been terrible at 5-on-5. They can't defend anybody. They're taking penalties. I don't know, man. This seems like the spot for Toronto. They're popular, but I don't know how you fade this one here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it looks like a great spot for them. Holtby, 888 save percentage on the year as a team. Vancouver, 46.14 Corsi 4 percentage, 89.8 team save percentage. So I just think there's a spot where Toronto's going to be able to roll them, and we've got some one very good line up top, questionable with who's the third man in that second line. And then I agree. I think that third line is definitely in play. You take Mikheyev and Kerfoot without Vesey, 316-40 together since the start of last year, 52-41 Corsi 4 percentage, 48.28 goals for. It's 14-15. 52 high danger chances for, 52 allowed, 7 to 8 goals, but they clearly generate some chances. They clearly generate some scoring. And Jimmy Vesey, a nice player to add in there. So definitely could get to some of that line. And I agree on the Tavares and Nylander. Don't worry about who the third guy on that line is. Just go with the two mans. And then they're going to be popular. But yeah, if you can figure out a way to load up that first line and maybe grab some power play correlation there, that's a potentially dominant spot tonight. So I like all parts of that.
Yeah, Tavares is also going to play the top power play. I don't know if I mentioned that, but the Leafs had been going with split units with Tavares and Nylander on one, Matthews and Marner on the other, which I hate. But now since they're hurting for power play guys, Tavares is going to be with the good units. So now they're stacked on one unit, should be treated like a real top power play unit. I wouldn't really worry about the secondary guys too much. But yeah, I mean, if you want to stack up Leafs power play, by all means, it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. You're not getting that big of a discount on Morgan Riley either at 5,800, but I think a good play nonetheless. So I'm playing as many Leafs as I can tonight. I think I slightly prefer them over Edmonton. If I could only have one, like if I had one lineup tonight, I think it would probably be some sort of Leafs power play stack. Especially with Hyman back on that top power play at 4,700. He's the guy that people leave off all the time. I'm not going out of my way to leave him off, getting 18, 20 minutes a game, top power play duties. And it just seems difficult that he gets left out of the scoring entirely if the Leafs put up 5 or 6 here, which they have a pretty good chance of doing. On the Canucks side, I think you can stack Horvat, Pearson, and Louis Eriksson as a 3-man. But most of my Vancouver exposure, and I think I'll have a decent amount of it, is going to be with the Pettersson, Miller, Besser line or power play stacking this side, and hope they get hot there. They do have a good top unit. You want to throw in Quinn Hughes at 5,400, that's fine. I think everybody's down on the Canucks, and for good reason, but they still do have a few pretty talented skaters at both 5-on-5 and the power play here. So I like the Canucks more than what we're showing on the ownership projections right now. What say you?
Yeah, and those top two lines have some experience playing together too. So you look at the top line, 510 minutes together since the start of last year, 55.71% Corsi 4 percentage, 61.02% goals for. It's 36-23 in goals. 85 to 84 high danger chances for versus against, but 19 to 16 in actually converting those. So that's a pretty decent line that, like you said, not a lot of people are going to, not super expensive. Nobody on that line, in my last update anyway, is owned over 1% on FanDuel. They're around the 5 to 6% range on DK. So definitely a sneaky kind of a spot. You can grab Quinn Hughes and put it in as a power play unit. So I don't mind that at all. Second unit right there with them in a lot of those numbers. Weaker in the goals for percentage, but in expected goals for, they jumped their goals for percentage actual is 41.94 since the start of last year in 285 minutes, but the expected goals for is 52.02. So decent line there, and 63 to 51 in generating high danger chances. So I don't dislike that either.
Yeah, lots to like in this game, but I mean, Toronto's the obvious spot, but I'm not leaving out Vancouver here. I think there's a pretty good chance they could put up 3 or 4 themselves, and most of that would come from the top line. At least that's how I'm treating it. Sandin is not going to skate with Nylander and Tavares. I see some people talking about it in chat. Some sites have him on the second line. I think that's just so they can fit in their 18 skaters. So that's what it's going to show up as in FC, but Sandin's a defenseman. So wouldn't play him as the third guy in your stacks. I would just play Tavares and Nylander if you can.
And we're not expecting it to be Joe Thornton either, right? I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, so he skated with them this morning, and so he was in projections for a while, but yeah, I don't think that he's eligible to even return yet tonight. So
okay, that's what it was, because I saw that he skated with them, I guess, in our Slack chat there, where everybody's staying on top of the morning skates and everything. And then I saw somebody saying later on that he wasn't, so I got a little lost on his status. So all right, that makes some sense. Yeah. On Toronto, jumping off of Joe Thornton since he's not playing. On Toronto, if you were to stack that power play unit, like you said, would you go with the top line, the Hyman, Matthews, Marner, and then as a fourth guy, would you rather go Riley, or would you build in Tavares and pay up and grab some ownership differential?
I like
Riley's going to be super popular.
Yeah, I think you go with the full five. I've been doing this quite a bit this season, especially because there's less beats on the job. They're not allowed to get as close to players and coaches, so they don't know the line. So if you feel really good about a team, I think as a general rule, stacking up their 5-man power play, if they have like a stacked top power play, is a pretty good way to go. And I'm seeing in tournaments probably not enough people are doing that, especially on shorter slates like this. So if I could only have one, I would probably go Tavares over Riley. But I really love including the power play defenseman as well. Yeah. So I would try to get him in, find your cheap one-offs or two-man elsewhere, and just kind of fill in the rest of your lineup with either correlated guys or like a low-price goalie that might see, 30, 35 shots.
Right on.
All right. You mentioned Slack chat, Terry. If you guys want to get in the premium Slack, you can join with any package. You get access to Slack for the duration of your membership. We've also got ownership projections, the Awesemo NHL projections, which were made by Alex and myself, and then I maintain them every day throughout the season. We've also got the top stacks tool, which everybody seems to enjoy. It shows you the top 2 stack percentage versus their ownership share, as well as line salary, so you can see all the prices of the different projected lines. And then maybe the best column on this sheet is the leverage column, so you can see how over-owned or under-owned your line is when you compare their top 2 stack percentage to their ownership percentage. And that's going to be a free tool at some point, but if you join our premium packages, you get it every day. We've also got the lineup builder. That's what I look at every day to go through the slate. It's a nice look at the team's matchups, implied totals. You can see each player's ownership percentage, their individual projection, and then for the forwards, their stack projection, which is also a pretty nice touch. And then lastly, again, premium Slack. Last but not least, that's where you can make the late swaps, find out who's playing with who. There's a lot of smart people in there, not just us, a lot of good subscribers, a lot of very sharp players sharing information in there, helping you, making sure that you get access to the correct lines, because it's hard to keep track, especially on a bigger slate.
And for my money, that is our most helpful Slack channel from the subscribers base. It's a channel full of really sharp subscribers, people actually like helping each other out. There's very little trolling or back and forth in there like you get in some of the other ones. So yeah, I think if you guys are looking for help with the NHL, that channel is a great spot to go.
Yeah, I don't, I go in MLB a little bit. I go in NFL every once in a while, maybe to troll Seth. But yeah, the NBA one, like, there's just so much going on. Not to say it's bad. You can definitely get good information, but
for sure, you just have to more know who you're listening to in the NBA one a little bit and avoid some of the back and forth. I think a little bit more.
It's
very good. Don't get me wrong.
For sure. So NHL super helpful. You guys probably know a bunch of you in the YouTube chat that are already subscribers. All right, another awesome game for DFS. Edmonton Oilers and the Ottawa Senators. This is the last game that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Mike Smith. It is Matt Murray. $6,500 Mike Smith. So DK missed the boat that Smith could be returning. And he is a $6,500 goalie that is favored against the Ottawa Senators. Matt Murray, $6,900. Not as highly owned because the Oilers have a 3.7 implied total. Senators just under 3. They're at 2.9. So don't think you need to forget about them, especially if you're playing a handful of lineups. It's either Edmonton or Toronto tonight. I guess, Terry, which one, if you're playing Edmonton 1 or Toronto 1, which one do you side with? Because it's really close.
Yeah, it's close, and they're both super expensive. You're getting good leverage just looking at our top stacks tool on both of those choices. I would probably try and save a few bucks, and you're not sacrificing much in terms of upside. You're talking about the same basic chance to be one of the top two stacks. I would probably save a few bucks by going to the Edmonton line over the Toronto line, but it's only based on salary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the top stack tool to try to. I really like to use this to like break some ties as well, like see which line has higher ownership share, see which line has a higher top two stack percentage. Right now, these are the Edmonton 1 and Toronto 1 are the highest top two stack percentages. That's not a shock to anybody. They're almost double the third best line, which we'll get to in the next game. And then their ownership is basically right on line with each other, like just proportional ownership, proportional leverage as well to the field. Their prices are really close. Toronto's a little bit more expensive. I choose Toronto, but I think I might end up feeling really dumb when McDavid ends the slate in about 15 minutes into the game. So I like Edmonton. I'm not going to have none of them. I almost never have none of a team on a 6-game slate. I think I'll probably just be closer to like 12 to 15% at most of Edmonton 1, Edmonton power play. Whereas I might have more than the field on Toronto, and certainly going to have an Edmonton stack at the higher stakes to try to like hedge a little bit. Because I think they're two really, really awesome spots. If you want to work in, is James Neal confirmed on the top power play? I'm
got him
seeing that he is. Yeah. I don't know when the last time is that they practiced that, but if he is, 4K for him in an Edmonton power play stack might differentiate you a little bit. I know he's not the greatest player anymore, but that's a way to get a little different. I don't know. I mean, Edmonton looks like a great spot. So if someone said they were their number one stack and they liked him over Toronto, I would say that is, that sounds like a pretty good plan, getting to play McDavid and Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Puljujarvi, Tyson Barrie, all these guys at as not even the highest owned stack on a 6-game slate with a 3.7 total. You've got an abundance of options here. So is there a way that you can attack them?
Are you stacking Smith with them to grab a little savings at your goaltender spot and do a little correlation play?
So Smith is the highest owned goalie on the slate, and I usually don't really care that much about ownership for goalies, and I'm trying to just correlate or play whoever fits.
Yeah,
and he does both. So I think when I sort out my lineups, like it's not like we have an amazing projection on Smith. He is a good value, but he's not a very great goalie. I think it's weird because I think he's your best cash option at 6,500, just because Ottawa's going to put up shots and Smith's got a good chance at a win. But I'm probably going to be underweight on that in tournaments. He's the highest owned player on the slate, Mike Smith, with almost a 3-goal total going up against him. So maybe he'll be good. I can't see myself getting the 30+% of him though. So,
all right.
If you want, like, you could just play a bunch of Edmonton and not play a ton of Smith. I think if you're worried about that, like, because people will correlate this, he just fits so nicely with your Edmonton stack. But I like Ottawa quite a bit tonight. So I like the top line. What do you think about Ottawa 1 here? They're picking up a little bit of ownership, but seems to be somewhat in check.
Yeah, I think they're in play. I was actually surprised that they were getting as owned as they were. I was thinking about that top line at least as, when I was just starting to look at the slate as something that might be a little under the radar, but getting a little bit of popularity and, justifiably so. They're not super expensive as a unit and they're relatively productive. I mean, they're by far the best line on that team. So 2404 as a three-man unit since the start of last year, 55% Corsi 4. Had not scored a goal, but generated 4 high-danger chances 4, gave up 4. Kachuk and Norris without Dadonov, 118-55 since the start of last year, 5404 Corsi 4. 4 goals scored, 5 against. So they're a line that, is productive, is in the game, should show some, puck possession capability. So I think we can get to them. And like you said, they're not expensive. They're going to be in the mix as far as ownership, but I don't think you're breaking your back with the exposure if you build them in as your second unit and try and put them maybe with one of the lesser owned top lines, as a combination. So I can get behind that. The others, not quite as much. I don't think nobody's really jumping out at me, and they kind of mix up the power play assignments throughout those second and third lines. So not really in love with that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to check and see. Okay, we're good until the top of the hour if we need the extra minutes. Just was checking with Tyler. But yeah, I mean, Ottawa won. So with Kachuk, Norris, and Dadonov, as you mentioned, pretty small sample so far. They haven't been super impressive. Kachuk is a great 5-on-5 player. And the thing that I like about them is I don't think they're going to spend at least all of their ice time up against the McDavid line. Now, the McDavid line's not great defensively, but they are great offensively, and that's something you need to really worry about when you're trying. Like, you got to get the puck to score, and the McDavid line does a really good job of not giving up the puck. Whereas the Draisaitl line doesn't really do that. So I think if we see Tierney, Brown, and Stetzel go up against the McDavid line, even a little bit to spell Ottawa one, they get a little bit softer of a match against Draisaitl. You get 2 guys in the top power play, 2 of, I think, the best plays on Ottawa that are a little bit popular, Kachuk and Dadonov. You can add in Shabbat. I don't know. I was kind of done with Shabbat, and then all of a sudden this guy pops off for like a 3-point game when he wasn't even supposed to play. So I think I'm tentatively back in on Shabbat, but I don't think I get to a lot of him without Ottawa one stacks. The rest of these lines are just kind of whatever for me. If you wanted to play another Ottawa line, maybe you go to the third line just because they're going to play a lot of minutes. It's not really like they don't really inspire confidence. That's all Tierney and Connor Brown, but pretty decent values there, especially for Brown, projected for over 2x on DK. So that would probably be my second favorite line on the Ottawa side. And then as usual for Edmonton, it's basically just like if I'm playing them, I have to play at least one of McDavid or Draisaitl. I usually don't drop down to the third line with Turris, Cassian, and James Neal. Although, like I said, I would include Neal in some hybrid Edmonton onslaughts or power plays if I was going there. Tyson Barrie, 5,900. He's another guy. I don't think I'll use him in non-Edmonton one stacks. So I don't know if I'll end up just grouping him out, but maybe a correlation boost where on lineups where you use Tyson Barrie, you're going to want to boost up McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Draisaitl, guys like that. So
makes sense.
Anything else you see here? Any punt defensemen that are catching your eye? I'm not seeing too many guys projected very highly. Am I missing anybody?
Not really. I would say the one thing that maybe jumps out a little bit is just the ownership mark on Darnell Nurse. Under 10% on FanDuel, under 5% on DK. You're paying a little bit of a premium for him, but top pair defenseman, guy who's relatively productive in the offense, a ton of ice time, 24-15 average ice time this year. So maybe just as an ownership kind of a play. And he gets second unit power play correlation there. So you're talking about some of the other guys from that team if you're going to stack him. But as a one-off with reasonable ownership, I could see going to him.
Yeah, and especially with Nurse, he's probably like the better one-off just in general, especially when he's not on the top power play. he's going to skate a lot with McDavid and Draisaitl at 5-on-5 too. So there's definitely some correlation, just not maybe as much as Tyson Barrie, but you get a little bit of an ownership discount on him, which is nice. The only other guy I'll mention, I mentioned him a couple shows ago, was Evan Bouchard. I think he's attempted 15 shots in his first 2 games. So small sample, but if he's going to shoot anywhere close, anywhere close to that rate of shots, I'm in for 3K for 16, 17 minutes a game. Tampa, Nashville, 3.2 implied total for the Lightning, 2.5 for the Preds. Curtis McElhinney and maybe Saros. I've got him in right now. Could be Pekka Rinne. Saros is $200 more expensive, so that's why I've got him in right now if you want to make that easy swap. I'm seeing some new – actually, it looks like they went back to the old Nashville lines. Duchesne, Forsberg, and Granlund. I saw some different combos earlier in the day. Yarncroc, Arvidsson, and Grimaldi, and then Haula, Cousins, and Tolvanen for Nashville 3. Tampa Bay keeping it status quo. You got Point Plot, Stamkos on the top line, Cirelli, Killorn, Johnson, that good third line as well. Man, I wasn't getting to a bunch of exposure in this game. I don't know if that's going to change. The only line that's picking up a bunch of ownership is Nashville 1. But what are you liking here, Terry?
I think there's a lot to like in this game. I mean, the obvious, Tampa 1 makes a ton of sense. Tampa 2, pretty good. And then you mentioned, I think Tampa 3 is like super sneaky. I think they're a really good line. Just taking a look, 78-34 together. So not a gigantic sample, but not, totally irrelevant. 63.28% Corsi for, goals for 3-1. The thing that really stood out to me is 23-6 advantage in the high danger chances for versus against, and a 2-1 conversion rate on those. So really like the way that they can generate those chances. I think they're, with very little ownership on them and not a high price as a unit, I think they make a ton of sense to start looking at as kind of a sneakier option. And then, of course, the top 2 Tampa lines very much in play. You're not getting a ridiculous amount of ownership on that super expensive top Tampa line. So they're the third one in that group of 4 that I talked about off the top with when we were talking about the Rangers. I think they make a ton of sense to go to, obviously.
Yeah, Tampa 1, pretty low ownership, decent total. Not great for them, but average total for them, 3.2 on the road. They're fully correlated on the power play. It's just a pricing thing with Point and Stamkos and Palat. So you don't need a lot of them to get over the field. Like if you wanted to go 10% of them, you're comfortably 2 times over the field based on our ownership projections. And I think we're pretty much spot on that. I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about Tampa 1 in chat. And like Nashville isn't a phenomenal defensive team, but they do have the Yossi Ellis pairing at home, pretty good defenseman as well. And they've got this Duchesne, Forsberg, Granlund line that I think is going to be pretty strong. I mean, they were in the first game together. They have really good numbers going back to last year. So if they match up against Point, Stamkos, Palat, it's not an optimal matchup, especially at these prices. But if you wanted to go over on Tampa 1, I wouldn't be mad at that. It is one of the better lines that we have in DFS. Their numbers aren't great at 5-on-5 just yet, but it's just an ownership thing. They grade out very well in the top stacks tool. So if you like to use that, you're probably going to like yourself some Tampa 1. Tampa 3, Gord, Coleman, and Goudreau. This is a line I play pretty much every slate that is not like 14 games. So I love playing some of these third lines on the mid-side slates. I'll definitely be having some Tampa 3. And then I think I'm going to go to some Nashville 3 as well. Haula, Tolvanen, and Cousins. It's just Tolvanen. I don't know. People smarter than me think that he's going to be very good. I know he was a pretty big prospect for them. And I think Hall is a fine center. Both guys min salary. Cousins is also min salary. So 7,500 for this line. I mean, you could fit them in with pretty much anyone plus some stellar defensemen as well. So
yeah, they're literally half the price of Edmonton 1.
That's
like exactly half the price. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's some third line interest on both sides for me here. Nashville 1. I mentioned them being a strong line, but they're going up against a strong line. I would think with no Ryan Johansson for the Preds. I would think they spend the most time against Tampa 1. So maybe those two kind of cancel each other out. I can't see myself getting to the field at the very least on Nashville 1. Forsberg's been hot. They are priced well, but I think they're priced almost too well, where they're just getting ownership because it's their value. I'm not sure this is a spot where they blow up really. So I'm going to go elsewhere on Nashville's new top line. But defensemen, I mean, bunch to choose from on the Nashville side. You've got Josi, Ellis, Ekholm. I like them in the order Josi number 1, Ekholm 2, and then I think I'll have some Ellis, but he'll probably lag behind those guys. Hedman at 7,300. Tampa 1 is really tough to fit in if you're going to try to play Hedman as well. So I'm not crazy about any of the Tampa defensemen. The guy I'll probably have some of is Chernak at $3K. Anything else you want to mention here?
I think you covered it. There was something I was about to throw out there, but it slipped my mind. So I think you covered all of it. Let me see if I can figure out what I was going to say there. Yeah, I lost it.
No, you're all good.
That top line versus top line, just to throw it in there since you brought it up. 260-22 since the start of last year with a 57.34 Corsi for percentage for the Nashville top line, 115.43 with a 49.11 for the Tampa top line. But the Tampa top line's got a 77.78 goals for percentage, 7-2 versus a 59.26 for the Nashville 16-11. So it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, it is. I'm hoping a pretty quiet one. Maybe we get a couple Nashville 3 goals, get all my Toronto, some of my Edmonton stacks, and just start printing money.
Love it.
Seth actually asked, I don't know what's going on with Seth, because he's been trolling less and asking real questions more. He says, would you play an Ottawa skater versus Smith? So this is going back to the previous game. So Ottawa playing up against Mike Smith in a GPP. What do you think about that?
I tend to not go to, versus other parts of my own lineup in every sport. So batters versus pitcher in baseball, quarterback versus defense in football. So taking skater, it's just kind of against how I typically like to build things. But in the case where you get a small slate, a very good value player in, Smith as a goaltender, you could justify it, I think, but it still probably wouldn't be on my to-do list. It would be something I would not look to do.
Yeah, I think if I was hand building and I loved my lineup and I had Smith in there and I wanted to play $2,900 Brandstrom, that would be just punt defenseman. That would be fine, I think. But I don't think I would play Kachuk or Dadonov against him. Number one, it's just I don't want to set that precedent for the optimizer where you forget your upload late and all of a sudden you're allowing one skater against every goalie. I think you would actually have to group that out on FC if you were making a bunch of lineups, which is kind of tough to do and easy to forget.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to your point there. Maybe if you were going to create that group, if Smith, then, only these guys, set it apart to where you're only grabbing, maybe some shot blocking defensemen, guys who put up points like that, a little bit of floor for very cheap. Don't go to the goal scorers. Don't go to the guys who are going to put, a big negative on your goaltender.
Yeah, for sure. So, Seth, good question. I'm sure you are not the only one that had that one in the chat. Last game of the night, and then we will scoot on out of here. Arizona, St. Louis, 2.5 implied total for the Yotes, 3 for the Blues. Kemper, Binnington. I'm pretty sure these two teams have played 15 nights in a row, and Arizona's won every single one, and it feels like they score within the first 2 minutes every single time, and I get left with my Binnington shares. He projects okay tonight, low total against him. He's a home favorite. I don't know what's going on with this Blues team, but they're shaking things up. So I don't have the correct lines in front of me. So let's see if I can remember this. I believe it is Sundqvist. Or no, I'm sorry. These are the correct lines. Barbashev up with O'Reilly Perron. Sundqvist centering Sanford and Mike Hoffman on the third line. Second line, my favorite line, stays intact. Power plays all screwed up as well. So I'm looking here and these power plays, Sundqvist, Hoffman, O'Reilly, Perron on one unit, the other unit is Schwartz, Shen, and Kyrou. They're going to be split power plays. So take the defensemen that correlate to your power plays is my advice here. Do you have a favorite St. Louis line here? And then are you going to anything on the Yotes?
I think I'm with you on that St. Louis too, just for a solid group of guys that have some experience getting together. 239.09 together, 57.67% Corsi for, 66.67 goals for. That's 16-8 goals for, 43-37 in high danger chances for versus against with a 6-4 conversion. So definitely like that line. Top line, not so good, but it's a very small sample in terms of those three guys together. Only 37-19, 38.24% Corsi for, so terrible on the puck possession. 1 to 2 goals scored versus allowed. 3 to 12 in high danger chances though, which is a little ugly. So giving up a lot more high danger than they're getting. So yeah, I think it makes sense on that second unit, and then maybe all three of them are on the top power play, right? Schwartz, Shen, and
Kyrou. Yeah.
So that would be the one.
Right. Like it's basically just how the sites list the power plays, whether it's PP1 and PP2. So this is a spot where I would include some PP2 stacks because who knows who's going to actually go out first. Like, it's not like they stacked up one unit with O'Reilly, Perron, Shen, Schwartz, which is what they had been doing, and Krug running the top power play. So I would think maybe Krug's unit gets the first shot, but Vince Dunn's on that, and Falk's been okay for the Blues too. So it could be the O'Reilly unit with Falk that comes out first, and it's probably going to be a hot hand situation, which is pretty frustrating. So the nice thing is you're going to get power play exposure for most of the forwards on the Blues, just not quite sure if it's going to be a 60-40 split one way or the other.
Yeah.
And then Arizona, low ownership on this top line. Garland's been shooting like a madman. So he actually doesn't project very poorly for 6,100, but it's kind of funny to see these prices going up into the teeth of O'Reilly and Perron, one of the dullest duos. And I say that as a compliment in that they're very good at shutting down opposing teams. I think like just over 2 expected goals against per 60. So let's see. That's really about it on the Arizona side for me. Maybe some Chikrin at 5K. He's been shooting quite a bit recently. And did I mention? Yeah, St. Louis 2 is my favorite line, the Shen, Schwartz, Kyrou line. They're all going to be in the same power play unit, whichever one that is. I do have some interest in the third line as well, Sundqvist, Sanford, and Hoffman. The problem is that that's 3-wing line. So they might go pretty well with Edmonton 1/Edmonton power play if you want to get McDavid and Draisaitl in there. They might go pretty well with, maybe like a Matthews and Tavares Toronto power play stack. So that's going to be
that's the one that leapt to mind because you get like we talked about, you build Tavares in as another center there, then you can get the 3 wings.
Yeah. So I'm running it back with St. Louis for like the 8th slate in a row. I think it's worked out maybe one time for me, and it was in a bad spot against Vegas, I want to say, with the second line. So I like 2 and 3 for St. Louis a little bit. But overall, I wouldn't be fine. I wouldn't be too mad if these later games stayed quiet, because if something goes nuts here, I think I might be on the wrong end of it. Anything else in this game? Anything else in the slate you want to mention before we hop on out?
Just in this game, one that kind of, not a standout line by any means, but super cheap and nobody on them. Maybe that third line from the Yotes with Bouchard and Kessel centered by Hayton, 2 veterans centered by a 20-year-old.
All right.
Like I said, not good, but nobody really on them. So maybe you get a little sneaky there.
Look, I bet I had more than 1% of them just based on the way that I play. So I'm in no position to disagree with that. If you're playing and you're going to play more than 10, 12 minutes, I probably have some exposure to you on a 6-game slate. Yes, the show is going to start a little bit earlier going forwards. It's going to be 3 Eastern, I believe, tomorrow. We will confirm that, but just check the YouTube events and you will be able to see that. We are going to head on out of here. Again, show is going to start at 3 Eastern. Tomorrow, I just got confirmation actually in Slack. And that is going to do it Thanks for joining, Terry. Thanks for joining for the audience. Drop us a like on the way out. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we go live. Enjoy the NBA shows coming up, and we'll be in Slack until lock. Good luck, everybody.
Go get them.